The sun was dipping low over the distant hills, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Dust clung to the traveler's clothes and skin, evidence of a long journey on foot. His feet ached. His stomach grumbled. And all he wanted was a quiet place to rest for the night. He had wandered through endless stretches of desert, past rocky outcrops and dry, cracked riverbeds, searching for shelter. The thought of a roof over his head, even a simple one, filled him with relief. As he crested a small hill, he noticed smoke curling into the sky from a distant settlement. His tired eyes brightened. The smoke promised warmth, fire, and maybe a meal. As he drew closer, the details of the settlement became clear. A few wooden structures, surrounded by simple fences, were scattered across a flat area, and in the distance, small gardens indicated that life here was steady and self-sufficient. It was quiet, almost eerily so, but in that silence, there was a sense of peace that called to him. He approached slowly, keeping his distance at first. He knew better than to barge into a place uninvited. The people who lived here were likely protective of their space, and he had no desire to cause trouble. Still, hope and hunger pushed him forward. As he reached the edge of the settlement, he saw movement. 3 women were working near the fire pit, gathering wood and preparing food. Their movements were graceful but purposeful, and even from a distance, he could see the strength in their bodies. They were Apache women. And judging by the small tattoos and the way they carried themselves, they had lived through hard times. He hesitated, unsure of how to approach. But the chill in the evening air reminded him that he needed warmth. Summoning courage, he called out a quiet greeting, careful not to startle them. "Excuse me. I mean no harm. I only need a place to rest for the night." Well, the women stopped their work and turned toward him. Their eyes were sharp and assessing. For a moment, there was silence. Then, the eldest woman stepped forward. She was tall, with streaks of silver in her dark hair, and her eyes held both caution and curiosity. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. "My name is—" "Well, it does not matter," he said, choosing his words carefully. "I have traveled far, and I only seek a place to sleep. I do not want trouble, only shelter for the night." The women exchanged glances. There was a subtle conversation in their eyes, a silent weighing of the stranger's words. Then, after a pause, the eldest nodded. "You may stay," she said, "but you must follow our rules while you are here. Respect our home, and we will respect you." Relief washed over him, so strong that he almost stumbled. "Thank you," he said, bowing his head slightly. "I promise to respect your home." As he approached the fire, he noticed how carefully the women moved around each other, how smoothly they coordinated without speaking too much. One of the younger women handed him a bowl of stew, thick and hearty, filled with vegetables and meat. It smelled delicious, and his hunger made the aroma almost unbearable. He sat by the fire, quietly eating, careful not to overstep any boundaries. The night settled in slowly, the stars appearing one by one in the darkening sky. The settlement, though small, felt alive. The crackle of the fire, the occasional call of an owl, and the soft murmurs of the women as they worked or talked quietly created a rhythm that was both calming and grounding. The traveler, for the first time in days, felt a sense of safety. He noticed the women watching him occasionally, not in a threatening way, but with interest. They were not strangers who had seen many travelers pass by. There was a curiosity in their gaze, a quiet question that lingered in the air. Who was he? Why had he come here? What did he seek beyond rest? Despite his exhaustion, he tried to make conversation, though it was limited by the language barrier. He learned a few words here and there, enough to exchange pleasantries and show gratitude. The women seemed pleased by his efforts, and the tension in the air eased. Slowly, laughter began to creep into the quiet settlement. Small smiles, shy glances, and gentle teasing broke the ice. The traveler, though cautious, allowed himself to feel a spark of connection with these women, who had offered him shelter without knowing him. As the fire burned low, the eldest woman motioned for him to follow her to a small hut. Inside, the space was simple but clean. A mat was laid out for him, and blankets were neatly folded in a corner. This is where you will sleep tonight," she said softly. "Rest well. Tomorrow, you will work with us, if you wish, and learn our ways." He nodded, too tired to speak, and lay down on the mat. The blanket smelled faintly of herbs, and the softness was a comfort he had not felt in days. As he drifted off to sleep, he could hear the quiet murmurs of the women outside, tending to their chores by the dying fire. Despite the strangeness of the situation, a sense of belonging crept into his heart. For the first time on his long journey, he felt that he was exactly where he was supposed to be, even if only for one night. The next morning, the sun rose over the settlement, casting golden light over the small huts and gardens. The traveler awoke to the sound of birds and the smell of fresh bread baking over the fire. The women were already awake, moving with practiced efficiency. One of them handed him a cup of warm tea, and he drank gratefully, feeling the heat spread through his chilled body. "Today, you will help us," the eldest woman said, her tone firm but kind. "We all work together. You will learn, and we will watch." He nodded, eager to repay the kindness they had shown him. Tasks were simple at first: gathering firewood, carrying water, helping with the garden. But as the day went on, he began to see the rhythm of life in the settlement. Every action had a purpose, every movement a meaning. The women moved with confidence and precision, and he found himself both exhausted and fascinated by their skill. By evening, the traveler felt a strange sense of accomplishment. He had not only survived the day but had become a small part of this community. The women smiled at him with quiet approval, and he felt a flicker of pride. He realized that what had started as a simple need for shelter was becoming something more: an understanding, a connection, a place where he was welcome. As night fell again, he lay on the mat, staring at the roof of the hut. The stars were out once more, and the fire's warmth seeped through the walls. He thought about the journey that had brought him here, the hardships he had endured, and the kindness of these strangers who had become his hosts. He realized that sometimes life offered unexpected shelter in the most unlikely places, and sometimes that shelter came with a chance to learn, to grow, and perhaps to belong. Little did he know that his presence in the settlement had already begun to stir something in the hearts of the three women. Their curiosity had shifted to interest, and their interest to something deeper. For now, he only sought rest. But soon, he would discover that what he had found was not just a place to sleep, but a place that might change his life forever. The night deepened, quiet and still, and the traveler finally drifted into sleep, unaware of the new chapter that was beginning in the simple, resilient lives of the three Apache widows who had opened their doors to him. The next morning, the traveler woke to the gentle hum of life around the settlement. The sun had barely risen, yet the three women were already moving with quiet purpose. Their routines were seamless, a mix of skill, rhythm, and experience, honed over years of living in the harsh, yet beautiful land. He watched from the doorway as one woman tended the small garden, carefully checking the plants for signs of growth or struggle, while another collected water from a nearby stream, balancing the heavy jars with ease. The third stirred a pot over the fire, the aroma of herbs and vegetables filling the air. He stretched, trying to shake off the stiffness in his muscles, and stepped outside to greet them. "Good morning," he said, a small smile on his face. The women acknowledged him with nods, and one offered him a cup of tea. The warmth spread through his body, waking him fully. And for a moment, he simply admired the serenity of the place. The eldest woman approached him and handed him a basket. "You will help gather firewood today," she said. "It is simple work, but it must be done carefully. Follow our way, and you will learn." He nodded eagerly, grateful for the chance to contribute. As they walked toward the surrounding woods, he noticed how naturally the women moved through the environment. They seemed at home among the trees and rocks, aware of every sound and movement. He began to follow their instructions, carefully picking branches and placing them in the basket. The work was hard, but it felt meaningful. The women spoke little as they worked, yet their presence was comforting. Occasionally, one of them would offer guidance, gently correcting his technique or showing him a better path through the forest. He was struck by their patience and wisdom, realizing that everything they did was purposeful, a lesson in living with both care and strength. By midday, they returned to the settlement, the basket full and their spirits light. The traveler felt a sense of pride at having completed the task, and the women smiled at his efforts. They had begun to see in him more than just a tired stranger. They noticed his willingness to learn, his quiet respect, and the steady determination in his actions. In turn, he began to see their resilience and intelligence, their ability to manage a household and survive in a world that could be unforgiving. As the afternoon sun climbed higher, the women taught him more tasks. He helped repair a fence around the garden, carrying heavy wooden posts and hammering them into place under their careful instruction. One of the widows showed him how to weave baskets, guiding his hands with gentle corrections when his fingers fumbled. Another taught him to prepare simple meals, explaining which herbs and roots could be used for flavor or medicine. Each lesson was a window into their world, and he absorbed everything with awe and gratitude. During breaks, they shared stories around the fire, speaking of their pasts and the lives they had built despite losses and hardships. The traveler listened intently, learning not only about their culture but also about the strength of the human spirit. Their stories were full of sorrow and joy, hardship and triumph, and through them, he began to understand the depth of their characters. Each widow had a unique presence. The eldest carried wisdom and authority. The middle one brought warmth and humor, and the youngest offered curiosity and spirited energy. Together, they formed a balanced and harmonious household, and the traveler was slowly becoming a part of it. Over the following days, their interactions grew warmer. The women would laugh softly when he made mistakes, teasing him gently, and he would respond with shy smiles or quiet jokes. Small gestures of care began to emerge, a hand on his shoulder to steady him, a cloth offered when he sweated under the sun, or a bowl of stew left near him when he was tired. Though he had come seeking only shelter, he began to sense that his presence had stirred feelings he had not anticipated. Yet, he remained focused on learning and contributing, unaware of the deeper intentions of the women. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, the three widows gathered around the fire to discuss him in private. Their voices were soft, their words deliberate. "He is different from other travelers," said the eldest, her eyes thoughtful. "He respects us, he works hard, and he listens. That is rare." The youngest nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. "I think he does not understand how much we need someone like him," she said. "He only sees what he wants, a place to rest, but he is already part of our lives." The middle widow, always practical, added, "We must be careful. We cannot force him to feel anything, but we can show him what life could be like with us. He may not realize it yet, but he is important to our home." While the women spoke, the traveler was nearby, gathering firewood for the evening. He felt a strange warmth in the settlement, a sense of belonging that he had never known in his long travels. He thought about the kindness of these women, their strength, and the harmony of their household. Though he had no intention of staying long, he could not deny that he was beginning to care for them, even if only as friends. Life in the settlement continued with its rhythm. Mornings were for chores and learning, afternoons for gathering and preparation, and evenings for stories, cooking, and quiet reflection. The traveler grew stronger, more confident in his tasks, and the women grew more comfortable with him. They laughed together, shared meals, and celebrated small victories, like a successful harvest from the garden or the completion of a repair. One day, while helping to carry water from the stream, the traveler slipped on a mossy rock and nearly fell. One of the widows caught him just in time, steadying him with a firm hand. "Careful," she said, her tone more gentle than usual. "You are not used to our land yet. You must learn its ways." He laughed, a little embarrassed, and thanked her. In that moment, he felt the closeness of their bond, a connection that went beyond words. As the days passed, he began to notice small signs of the women's growing interest in him. A touch lingered a moment longer than necessary. A smile held a quiet promise. A glance that lingered across the fire. He remained unaware of their deeper intentions, assuming their attention was a reflection of his work and helpfulness. Yet, even without realizing it, he was already becoming entwined in the fabric of their lives. The traveler also began to reflect on his own feelings. He had always been solitary, moving from place to place, carrying only the necessities. But in this settlement, he found something he had not anticipated: a sense of home, of connection, of shared purpose. The laughter, the quiet conversations, the trust and mutual respect. It was a life he had never imagined for himself. Yet it felt natural, almost inevitable. One night, as they all sat around the fire, the eldest widow told a story of her late husband, of the lessons he had taught her about strength and kindness. The middle widow shared a humorous tale of her own struggles, making the traveler laugh out loud for the first time in weeks. The youngest spoke softly of her dreams and hopes for the future, her words gentle and sincere. The traveler listened, feeling a warmth in his chest, a mixture of gratitude and wonder. He realized that he had found something more than shelter. He had found a family, a place where he was valued, and people who could teach him the meaning of true connection. By the end of the week, the traveler's presence had become a quiet but steady part of the household. The widows had begun to coordinate their routines around him, subtly guiding him in tasks, watching him with interest, and finding joy in his growth. He, in turn, had begun to anticipate their needs, offer help without being asked, and enjoy the small comforts of shared life. The settlement had transformed from a temporary refuge to a place of belonging, a sanctuary where he could rest, learn, and slowly, unknowingly, become a part of something greater than himself. Though he had come seeking only shelter, the traveler was learning that life often had unexpected ways of giving more than one asked for. He was discovering trust, companionship, and the quiet strength of those who had survived hardships with dignity. And while he did not yet understand the depth of the women's intentions, he felt a growing bond, one that promised that his stay in the settlement would be more than a single night. As the fire burned low that evening, and the stars began to twinkle above, the traveler lay on his mat, reflecting on the week that had passed. He had arrived, tired and weary, seeking only rest. Yet he had been welcomed, taught, and included. The three widows had shown him kindness, patience, and strength, and he could not help but feel a deep respect for them. Little did he know, the quiet interest they had taken in him would soon grow into something far more significant, changing the course of his life in ways he could never have imagined. For now, though, he slept, peaceful and content, surrounded by the warmth of the fire, the gentle sounds of the settlement, and the unspoken promise of new beginnings. Days passed in a quiet rhythm, each one blending into the next with the steady pace of chores, laughter, and simple joys. The traveler had become a familiar figure in the small settlement, moving among the three widows with ease and confidence. His presence, once a curiosity, was now a natural part of their lives. Yet, as the traveler worked and rested, unaware of the growing tension in the hearts around him, the widows began to realize that their feelings were no longer simple admiration or gratitude. Each of them had come to care deeply for him, and the thought of life without his presence seemed unbearable. One afternoon, while the traveler was repairing a fence near the garden, the eldest widow called the other two aside. Their voices were low, serious, yet tinged with warmth. "He is more than a guest now," she said. "We cannot pretend he is just passing through. We must decide if we will let him stay, and if so, in what way." The middle widow nodded thoughtfully. "I have been thinking the same. He works with respect, he listens, and he is kind. We have lost so much, but perhaps he could bring life and companionship back into our home." The youngest looked down at her hands, fidgeting with a small piece of rope. "I like him," she admitted quietly. "I like the way he smiles, the way he tries to help without asking. I do not know if he feels the same, but I cannot imagine him leaving. The eldest placed a hand gently on the youngest's shoulder. We must be careful, she said. We cannot force him. We can only show him what life could be like with us. We must be patient and wise, or we risk losing him. Meanwhile, the traveler continued his work, unaware that this conversation was taking place just a few steps away. He hammered a post into the ground, his muscles tired but steady. Humming softly to himself, he was content in his routine, grateful for the simple life that had begun to form around him. The thought of the widow's intentions never crossed his mind. He appreciated their kindness and guidance, but he assumed that his presence was simply welcomed for practical reasons, helping with the chores, sharing the fire, and keeping company. That evening, as the sun sank low behind the hills, the widows decided to act subtly. Each of them found a moment to spend time alone with the traveler, sharing stories, offering small gifts, or gently teasing him. The eldest presented him with a carefully woven basket, showing him how it could be used for both carrying water and storing food. The middle widow prepared a special stew, adding extra herbs and spices, and encouraged him to taste it with a smile that lingered a moment longer than necessary. The youngest joined him while gathering firewood, chatting about the animals in the surrounding forest and laughing at his clumsy attempts to balance the logs. The traveler, while grateful and enjoying their company, remained unaware of the underlying intentions. He thought only of the tasks at hand, the lessons he was learning, and the warmth of their presence. Yet, slowly, he began to notice small differences in the way they treated him. Their glances seemed longer, their smiles softer, their voices carrying a gentle affection that had not been there before. He felt a strange warmth in his chest but could not understand why. One night, after the fire had burned down to glowing embers, the eldest widow sat beside him, her expression serious but kind. You have been here for some time now, she said. You have learned much, and you have become part of our lives. Have you thought about what comes next? The traveler looked at her, puzzled. I have thought only of helping, of learning, and of resting, he replied. I did not imagine anything beyond that. She nodded, as if expecting his answer. Life often brings unexpected opportunities, she said. You may find that what you seek is more than a place to sleep. Perhaps you may find a home, and perhaps even family. He considered her words carefully. He had never thought of himself as someone who could belong anywhere for long. His life had always been one of movement, of travel, of temporary shelters. Yet, as he looked around at the settlement, the steady fire, the gardens, the careful work of the widows, and their gentle presence, he realized that something was shifting inside him. For the first time, he could imagine staying, not just for a night or a week, but for a life built with others. Over the next few days, the widows continued their subtle plan. They worked together, coordinating their actions in ways that encouraged the traveler to see the value of staying. The middle widow would ask for his advice on small matters, showing that his opinions mattered. The youngest would laugh at his jokes, making him feel appreciated and welcomed, and the eldest would share wisdom and stories, showing him that he was trusted and respected. Slowly, carefully, they guided him into understanding that his presence was more than just tolerated, it was cherished. The traveler, meanwhile, began to notice that life in the settlement was unlike anything he had experienced before. There was a rhythm, a harmony, and a quiet joy that he had never felt on his travels. He began to care deeply for the widows, appreciating their strength, their kindness, and their resilience. He enjoyed their stories, their laughter, and even their gentle corrections when he made mistakes. He felt a bond forming, one that was quiet but undeniable, and he began to wonder if perhaps this place could be more than just a temporary refuge. Yet, as much as he felt a growing connection, he was still uncertain. The idea of staying with one family, of being part of a shared life, was new and strange to him. He valued his independence and had always relied on himself, but he could not deny the comfort, warmth, and sense of belonging that the settlement offered. The subtle signs of the widow's intentions made him curious, though he did not fully understand them. One evening, while preparing a meal together, the youngest widow playfully teased him about his awkward handling of the cooking utensils. He laughed, enjoying the light-hearted moment, and realized how much he had come to enjoy these interactions. The middle widow brought him a small bundle of herbs she had gathered, and the eldest showed him a new technique for repairing a fence. Each gesture, small as it was, made him feel more included, more trusted, and more cared for. Later, as the fire crackled and the sky darkened, the widows spoke among themselves again. "He is beginning to notice," said the eldest. "He senses the difference, even if he does not understand it yet." The middle widow smiled. "We only need to be patient. Soon, he will see what we see. That life together could be richer, fuller, and stronger than he imagined." The youngest nodded, her eyes bright with hope. "I think he already feels it, even if he does not say it. His actions show care, respect, and interest. He is already part of our home in ways he cannot yet name." The traveler, lying on his mat that night, felt a mixture of emotions he could not fully explain. He felt gratitude for their guidance, warmth for their companionship, and curiosity about his own feelings. He realized that he was no longer simply a visitor seeking rest. He had become part of their world, part of their lives, and perhaps part of their hearts. He thought about the rhythm of their days, the laughter, the work, and the quiet moments by the fire. He remembered the stories, the lessons, and the gentle touches of kindness. He realized that he was beginning to care for them deeply, in ways he had never experienced before. The thought both excited and frightened him, for he did not know what the future would hold, yet he could not deny the pull of this new, unexpected life. The next morning, the traveler awoke to find the three widows waiting with a task that required all of them to work together. As they moved side by side, their cooperation and coordination impressed him. He saw their strength and wisdom, their ability to manage challenges with grace and patience. He felt a sense of belonging, a quiet joy that came from shared effort and shared life. As the day passed, he began to notice the small but deliberate gestures the widows made to include him. A seat placed near the fire for him, a bowl prepared with extra care, a smile or glance that lingered just a moment longer than necessary. Each act, subtle yet meaningful, showed him that he was valued, trusted, and perhaps even desired, in ways he had not yet realized. By the time the sun set, casting long shadows across the settlement, the traveler sat by the fire, reflecting on the week that had passed. He had arrived seeking only a place to sleep. Yet he had found warmth, guidance, friendship, and connection. He was beginning to understand that life could offer unexpected paths, that relationships could grow quietly and naturally, and that sometimes the heart could lead one in directions unimagined. Little did he know, the widow's plan was slowly coming together. They had chosen to act with patience, respect, and care, understanding that love could not be forced but could be gently guided. Their intentions were no longer hidden, but revealed through the quiet gestures, shared stories, and unspoken bonds that were forming each day. The traveler's heart was ready to follow, even if his mind had not yet caught up. And so, the settlement settled into its evening rhythm. The fire glowing warmly, the women tending their tasks with practiced ease, and the traveler quietly realizing that he was no longer just a visitor. He was part of a home, part of a story, and part of a life that promised more than he had ever imagined. The days in the settlement continued with their quiet rhythm, but there was a new sense of anticipation in the air. The traveler had become more than a helper. He was part of the household, part of the daily life, and, in subtle ways, part of the hearts of the three widows. Each of them had, in their own manner, expressed their care and admiration, and now it was time for the traveler to understand the depth of the bonds that had formed. One morning, the eldest widow called him aside, while the other two worked in the garden. Her eyes were calm, but her voice carried a gentle seriousness. "You have been here for some time, learning, helping, and living with us," she said. "We value your presence more than you know. You have become part of our lives, and we wish to ask if you would remain, not as a visitor, but as someone who belongs here." The traveler was silent for a moment, taken aback by her words. He had grown fond of this place, had grown to appreciate the quiet strength and kindness of the women, but he had never imagined being asked to stay permanently. His mind raced with thoughts. He valued his freedom. He had always traveled alone, and yet he could not deny the comfort, warmth, and sense of belonging he felt in their presence. He looked around, noticing the small garden they had tended together, the repaired fences, the simple homes filled with warmth and light. He thought about the laughter shared by the fire, the stories told, the meals cooked together, and the quiet moments of companionship. Slowly, he realized that he had already begun to see this place as home. The middle widow approached, carrying a small bundle of herbs. She smiled softly, placing it in his hands. "We do not ask this lightly," she said. "We know you value your freedom, but we believe that life together could be rich, full, and strong. We hope you will consider it." The youngest widow, standing nearby with a basket of freshly picked vegetables, spoke last. "I know this is unexpected," she said, her voice gentle, "but we have learned to care for you, and we hope that you might care for us as well. Not just for a day or a week, but as part of a shared life." The traveler felt a warmth spread through him, a mixture of surprise, gratitude, and a quiet joy he had never known. He realized that his heart had already made a choice. Even if his mind had been hesitant, he could not imagine leaving this place, leaving these women, leaving the connection that had grown so naturally. After a moment of thought, he spoke, his voice steady but soft. "I came seeking only shelter, but what I have found here is far more. You have welcomed me, taught me, and included me in your lives. I cannot imagine leaving. I wish to stay, to be part of your home, and to share life with you." The women smiled, their faces lighting up with relief and happiness. The tension that had been quietly building over the days melted away, replaced by a sense of harmony and mutual understanding. Their patience and care had guided the traveler to this realization, and now, the bond they had nurtured could fully bloom. The settlement seemed to celebrate this new understanding. The fire burned brighter that evening. The air was filled with the scent of cooked food and herbs, and the small home felt warmer and fuller than ever before. The traveler moved among them with ease, helping with chores, sharing stories, and enjoying their company. There was a sense of balance, a harmony that came from mutual respect, care, and shared responsibility. In the following days, the traveler and the widows began to build a new rhythm together. They planned gardens, repaired fences, and gathered food, always working as a team. The traveler learned more about their customs, their traditions, and their way of life, while the widows learned more about him, his experiences, his humor, and his quiet wisdom. They shared laughter and quiet moments, supporting each other through small challenges and celebrating the joys of daily life. There were evenings when they sat around the fire, the traveler listening to stories of the past, the widows recounting lessons learned from their husbands, from the land, and from life itself. He shared stories of his travels, the people he had met, and the places he had seen. In this exchange, they found connection, understanding, and trust. The settlement became not only a home, but a place of learning, growth, and shared happiness. As time passed, their lives became intertwined in ways that felt natural and effortless. The traveler began to anticipate their needs, offering help before being asked, noticing small details, and responding with care. The widows, in turn, continued to support him, guiding him gently, encouraging his growth, and showing affection in subtle, meaningful ways. Together, they built a life that was rich in simplicity, filled with shared purpose, laughter, and warmth. One evening, as the sun set over the hills, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. The traveler stood with the three widows, watching the light dance across the landscape. He felt a deep sense of peace, of belonging, and of gratitude. He had come seeking only a place to sleep, but he had found home, family, and a life filled with meaning. The eldest widow spoke first, her voice calm and steady. "Life is full of surprises," she said. "Sometimes, the path we think we are following is not the one we end up on. But if we are patient and open, we can find joy in unexpected places." The middle widow smiled, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You have become part of our lives in ways we never imagined," she said. "And in return, we hope that you will continue to grow with us, share our joys, and face life's challenges together." The youngest leaned against him, her head resting lightly on his shoulder. "We have found each other," she said softly, "and that is all that matters. Together, we are stronger, happier, and complete." The traveler felt a warmth he could not put into words. He realized that life had given him more than he could have imagined. A family, a home, and the trust and love of three remarkable women. He knew that this was where he belonged. Not just for now, but for the rest of his days. In the following weeks, they continued to strengthen their bond. They celebrated small victories in the garden, shared stories under the stars, and worked together to make the settlement even more comfortable and welcoming. The traveler taught the widows some of the skills he had learned during his travels, and they, in turn, taught him the deeper wisdom of living in harmony with the land and with each other. They faced challenges, of course, harsh weather, difficult tasks, and occasional misunderstandings, but these were met with patience, communication, and teamwork. Each challenge strengthened their bond, teaching them trust, compromise, and the value of working together. The settlement, once quiet and simple, now pulsed with life, laughter, and shared purpose. One morning, as the traveler helped gather water from the stream, he looked back at the settlement and smiled. The three widows were moving gracefully through their chores, their expressions filled with satisfaction and warmth. He felt a profound sense of gratitude for their patience, their care, and their decision to welcome him into their lives. He understood that love and family could grow in unexpected ways, and that sometimes, life's simplest acts like offering shelter to a weary traveler could lead to the most meaningful connections. As the sun rose higher, casting golden light across the hills, the traveler paused to take in the view. The settlement was alive with activity, but there was also peace, a balance that came from shared effort and shared hearts. He felt ready for whatever life might bring, knowing that he had a home, companions, and a bond that would endure through any challenge. The evenings became a time of reflection and quiet joy. Around the fire, they would share stories, laugh at small mishaps, and dream of the future. They spoke of hopes, plans, and the life they wished to build together. The traveler felt a deep contentment, knowing that he had found not just shelter, but a life full of meaning, connection, and love. One evening, as the stars twinkled above, the traveler looked at the three women and realized that life had given him a gift far greater than he had ever sought. He had come to rest, to find a place to sleep, but he had discovered a home, a family, and the joy of shared life. He understood that happiness was not only in the comforts of the body but in the connections of the heart. From that day forward, the settlement flourished. The traveler and the three widows lived together in harmony, each contributing their strengths, sharing their wisdom, and supporting one another through life's challenges. They celebrated seasons, harvests, and small achievements, always together, always united. Their home was filled with laughter, warmth, and the quiet joy of knowing that they belonged to one another. The traveler often reflected on the journey that had brought him here, realizing that sometimes life's most unexpected paths led to the most fulfilling destinations. He had sought only a place to rest, yet he had found love, friendship, and a sense of belonging that would last a lifetime. In the hearts of the three widows, he had discovered not just companionship, but a partnership built on respect, care, and shared purpose. As the fire crackled and the stars shone above, the traveler lay on his mat, content and grateful. He was no longer a stranger in the settlement. He was home. The three widows, strong, wise, and caring, had not only offered him shelter, they had offered him a life full of meaning, connection, and enduring happiness. And in that quiet, peaceful settlement, surrounded by love and trust, he finally understood what it meant to truly belong.